Welcome to Budget Friendly Nutrition. Today we're going to make a super simple gravy recipe. At the mobile produce pantries, we've been distributing mushrooms lately, so today I'll be demonstrating a mushroom gravy. But this foundational recipe can be adapted in so many ways. Once you know the basics of making gravy, you'll be able to make it for any occasion just the way you like it. Now before we start cooking, let's go over the elements of any good gravy. No matter what type of gravy you make, whether it be breakfast sausage gravy, mushroom gravy, or a classic turkey gravy, you'll want to include these main elements to make sure the flavor and texture turn out just right. Make sure you have seasonings for flavor, broth for volume and flavor, and some kind of starch as a thickener. I'll also talk about other optional additions in this video which are not necessary but do add depth of flavor. Today, I'm using garlic and onion, vegetable broth, soy sauce for depth of flavor, and some kind of fat. Today, I'm using olive oil, but you could use butter or rendered fat from whatever meat that you're cooking. A crucial ingredient is some kind of starch, which could be flour, cornstarch, or potato starch. Of course, if you're making a mushroom gravy, you'll need some mushrooms. Today, I'm using shiitake. We're going to start off by peeling and chopping the onion finely. Near the end of this recipe, I'm going to blend the gravy for a very smooth texture, so this part does not need to be perfect. If you want to keep the gravy with some texture, like if you're making a sausage gravy and you're not going to blend, I suggest chopping your onions nice and finely. If you do not have fresh onions or garlic, you may use onion or garlic powder in place of it. In that case, just season to taste. Next, we're going to peel and chop our garlic finely and set that aside. Give the mushrooms a rough chop. I'm chopping mine up about the same size as the onions. Now that everything is prepped, we're going to turn our burner on to medium-high heat and warm up our pot or pan. Add in the oil or fat, then add in whatever seasonings you're using. I'm using fennel and thyme, and I like to toast the spices in the warm oil for a minute or so, which release aromatics and deepen the flavor. Some other herbs that go well with gravy are rosemary, sage, parsley, and chives. If you're unsure of what spices to use, just consider what you're going to eat this gravy with and use similar seasonings. Once your seasonings are sizzling and fragrant, go ahead and add your onions to the pan and then your garlic. At this point, you can add a little bit of sea salt and some black pepper if you'd like. I suggest not adding too much salt because you can always add more in later, but you can never take it out. Stir this mixture and continue to cook until the onions start to become translucent. Then we can add our mushrooms into the pan and give it a good stir. Keep stirring and moving things around in the pan to avoid anything getting burnt on the bottom. Cook this mixture down for about 5 minutes or so until the mushrooms seem like they're thoroughly cooked. If you are making a sausage gravy, now is a good time to add in the sausage. Push everything to one side of the pan, and in that open space, add the sausage and cook until crispy. At this point, there will be some brown bits at the bottom of the pan, and we're going to deglaze with soy sauce. If you have drippings from a roast, this would be a great time to add those in. You could even do that in place of soy sauce. Then, use your spoon or spatula to loosen these brown bits from the bottom of the pan. This will keep them from sticking and burning, and it's also going to add so much flavor to the gravy. Now that everything's cooked down, we're going to add our flour or starch, depending on whichever one you're using. We're going to give it a good stir to mix and cook down for about a minute or so, because we don't want that raw flavor or texture of the flour. After about a minute or so, you'll see things are starting to get stuck to the bottom of the pan again, but it's not a problem. Just add in your broth and use that same technique of using your spoon or spatula to loosen those bits from the bottom of the pan. As you can see, the mixture is already thickening up really nicely. This is what happens when starch meets broth, and that's why those are two very crucial components of any good gravy. Now this next step is totally optional. Because this gravy does not have any heavy fats from meat drippings, I decided to add in about 1/2 cup of plant-based milk. You could use cow's milk or cream, or you could just skip this step altogether. Now that the gravy is almost finished, this is a good time to taste it and see if you'd like to adjust the seasonings. I prefer a smooth gravy, so I put the gravy into a blender and blitzed it until smooth. You could also do this using an immersion blender. I then put the gravy back into the pan to keep it hot and check the consistency by swiping my finger across the back of a spoon to see if the line held, and it did. Give it one last taste and season as needed before serving. Enjoy!